The entire fire area remains under threat as long as the current red flag conditions persist.
Breaking news at 9 o'clock, new flare-ups tonight at the Franklin fire in Malibu. Why the fire threat across SoCal is far from over.
And Pepperdine students back under a shelter-in-place order tonight with the wall of flames not far away. How the campus is prepped for disasters just like this one.
We have live team coverage from the fire lines tonight. Meteorologist Evelyn Taft is tracking the dangerous conditions, and Mike Rogers is monitoring the fire response from the desk. Good evening, everyone. I'm Pat Harvey.
And I'm Juan Fernandez.
And we continue to follow breaking news in Malibu, where the fast-moving Franklin fire is still burning out of control tonight.
The fire has burned over 3,000 acres and is still 0% contained. 20,000 people are under evacuation orders and warnings, and so far, we know of at least 7 structures that have been destroyed.
And KCAL News reporter Laurie Perez begins our team coverage tonight. She's live in the Malibu Country Estates area with neighbors helping neighbors. Laurie?
That's right, and you can see the fire raging on the ridge right behind me. That is just one concerning hotspot, one major hotspot, but they are all around us. Not only there, if we veer over to the left here, and then if we continue to circle around, you can see these major hotspots are all around us here in the Malibu Country Estates neighborhood. Firefighters are on a constant rotation on these streets, watching how and where these flames move. It is a very scary scene for anyone who lives around here, and of course a concern for those crews working so hard to get the Franklin fire under control.
No, it's close.
The flames are so near to Paul Joseph's Malibu Country Drive home, yet despite an evacuation order,
an emergency evacuation of this area is required.
He is opting to stay.
We spend the night stomping out embers, and I really feel like you need to do that because that's what starts these fires. So I want to stay here. We've already stomped out a whole bunch of them. We're just going to keep doing it.
Longtimers are stubborn in that way. Zach Resnick rushed to Malibu from Venice to help his 93-year-old grandpa who doesn't want to leave his home either.
It's just a house, but this is his whole family. It's emotional too.
We met Resnick at the local Ralph's, where workers were handing out basics for free to get Resnick's granddad and other neighbors who are staying put through the night without power.
I'm stunned by the generosity. She's been taking care of everyone for hours, all day.
Neighbors helping neighbors, like the local volunteer community brigade, who is side by side with the pros in the hilly, wooded streets, and who Resnick says saved their family home.
Somebody there, I remember, took a day off from being a judge and was helping. So these people are just locals trying to do their best to help out. Incredible. I'm so grateful because literally we would have lost the house if it wasn't for them.
As the Franklin fire pours through Malibu, many have had close calls.
Well, it was horrible, especially in front of our building. There's an empty lot that caught on fire.
And are praying their worst fears are not realized if the winds continue to feed the flames. There are a stunning number of fire crews here in Malibu tonight, and as long as things continue to flare up, as we just showed you, they of course will remain. There's lots of air support still, lots of air support flying overhead even as we speak. We are live in Malibu. Back to you.
Yeah, we see those windy conditions too. Laurie, thanks. And no doubt Pepperdine students spending another scary night sheltering in place. The scene outside the windows of the library last night.
And KCAL News reporter Tom Wade is live outside the campus where the flames seem to be growing again tonight. And Tom, that's why the university says they have to shelter in place, huh?
That's exactly right, Pat and Juan. The university says that the big concern is that many of the students don't necessarily know the area that well. There's pretty narrow roads and only a few of them coming in and out of the campus. Take a look right now. You can see some of those hot spots that are flaring up not far from the campus right now. What's really interesting about being in Malibu right now, which is obviously not a huge area, you can go a short distance down or up PCH, and depending on where you are, there could be very little wind or a lot. And I'm guessing you could probably hear the wind blowing against the mic. There's a lot of wind here right now, and there's definitely a significant response really close to the campus where the flames are jumping up once again, and firefighters are sort of attacking that area right around the campus. But again, as you said, students are in that shelter-in-place order right now with limited power on campus and just kind of waiting to see how this all plays out. Pepperdine students staying calm, sheltering in place Monday night as the Franklin fire raged around them. Flames so close, the windows looked like an inferno aquarium. A student who was holed up in the library describes the scene.
You just saw the flames coming up over the hill, and at first it was not a problem because they were like, the wind is blowing parallel and not in our direction. And I think about maybe 5 minutes later, they were like, it's in our direction.
Pepperdine's long-standing shelter-in-place policy appeared to work the way it's designed Monday night. No students were reported injured. Pepperdine's leadership says the strategy prevents a chaotic evacuation in an area with only a few narrow roads leading in and out of campus.
Really, for our campus, shelter-in-place is the best course of action to protect as many students as possible. And in this case, we're thankful that not one student suffered any injuries.
Pepperdine administrators say they also flooded all possible lines of communication to alert students and faculty about the fast-moving fire. And while the overall plan appears to have been a success, a student this morning told us there were moments of fear and communication breakdowns.
It was really scary. Everyone is really upset and scared, and no one really knows what's going on, and we see all the windows and we see the fire and we don't really know what to do, and the Wi-Fi's out, the power's out.
Pepperdine is no stranger to devastating fires. Back in 2018, Pepperdine faculty used the same strategy as the devastating Woolsey fire ripped through Malibu.
We have an arrangement that we shelter in place on this campus.
Although some have questioned whether it's wise to keep students on campus during a massive wildfire event, the alternatives may be worse.
The last thing they want are these kids to drive down through the canyon and get caught in a firestorm.
Rick Godinez is a retired LA City fire captain who spent 36 years with the department. He says Pepperdine carefully plans which buildings to use for shelter-in-place emergencies.
A lot of defensible space. My daughter went to Pepperdine, so I'm very familiar with the campus. And there are concrete structures, less likely to burn as the fire passes through. Yes, trees and combustible materials are going to burn, but in this case where these buildings are, there's a lot of defensible space with athletic fields and areas where the fire is going to move.
So once again, you're looking at a hotspot that is pretty close to the campus here. As I was mentioning off the top, we have seen a pretty large response to that area. A number of fire trucks headed that way about a half hour ago, so they are on top of it. Obviously, students who see that out the windows, it's pretty unsettling. And, you know, there really is no perfect plan, right, for a situation like this. Pepperdine administrators saying they're just trying to do what's safest when something just explodes like this fire did last night, and not sending students out into these roads into the darkness where there's no power. There's no street lights in a lot of areas, and, you know, that could make things even more unsafe. We'll, of course, be monitoring the conditions, but I can tell you right now the wind is really kicking up, and that is just making conditions even more volatile out here. Reporting live in Malibu, I'm Tom Waite. Back to you in the studio.
Yeah, we can hear that wind. Thank you so much, Tom. And we should mention 4 Malibu schools are closed tomorrow: Webster and Malibu Elementary, Malibu Middle, and Malibu High School.
All right, now let's check in with SkyCal's Desmond Shaw live above the firefight. Des?
Juan and Pat, this is the wide view of the Franklin fire now, and you can see just how spread out this fire has gotten. And the vast majority of the fire is now burning well west of Malibu Canyon. We'll throw the map tracker up there and show you. So Francisco Canyon there, Malibu Canyon there in the distance. So it's really moved quite a ways to the south, but especially the west as well. So even though things are still pretty tense at Pepperdine, the fire is definitely trending away from the university, and it's kind of in this really large open space area. As I put up the satellite overlay, you can see while there are definitely some populated areas in the area, it is mostly open space that the fire is beginning to move through here on the western flank of the fire. We saw the Chinook helicopter come in with a massive water drop right here to try to stop it in its tracks. They laid down a lot of fire retardant lines earlier this afternoon, And while that has helped, this is now kind of the time of the night where it is an advantage for the fire. And even though the winds are beginning to cooperate more fully, since we don't have those air tankers to be throwing down more fire retardant, this is unfortunately an opportunity for the fire to expand in its tracks. I'm going to put the satellite overlay on it again. As you can see, this really wide open space. There's a lot of open space between Malibu Canyon and Canaan Dune before we get next to this populated area, which is quite a ways away, and that is going to be off of Corral Canyon. So you can see this big dark space, a lot of upslopes and then downslopes, and hopefully this will be about as far as the fire expands. So we are still talking about more than 3,000 acres and very out of control, very, very diffuse fire, towering infernos all over the place. Definitely some homes have burned, but at least for the moment, moving into more open space than populated areas. Live in Sky Overhead, I'm Desmond Shaw. Pat and Juan, back to you in the studio.
Yeah, and that is good news. Des, thank you. And as we heard in Laurie and Tom's live reports, the winds are still a problem.
And meteorologist Evelyn Taft, she's been tracking the conditions and the timing in our next weather.
Yeah, I mean, Pat, Juan, really incredible that we're still contending with wind tonight. Humidity is getting dangerously low. Winds will still be strong as we move through the night, just not as strong as where we've been. The peak of the event, really, the wind event at least, ended at 10 a.m. But as Des was just saying, we are still looking at gusty conditions along the ridge tops there in the lower elevations. We are looking at much calmer conditions, not even registering as far as the gusts go. But up in the hills, Malibu Hills, 17 miles per hour, Malibu Vista, 17, and Point Dume, 16 miles per hour. Temperatures have ranged in the 50s and 60s, and that was the extent of it. So really, it did not get too warm today. So that was good news, not a ton of daytime heating. Very cold out there tonight. Gusts between 20 and 30 miles per hour tonight, and humidity between 5 and 15%, which is dangerously low. We could even see some spots drop as low as 2%. We will check in with the rest of Southern California, and we are still looking at critical fire danger on our hands at least through tomorrow. So we'll have the details on all of it in just a little bit. But for now, Pat, Juan, back to you.
All right, we'll check back soon. Ev, thanks. Well, since the onset of the fire, crews have been hitting the flames hard from the air.
Oh, that's right, Juan. But as night falls, those options become more limited. KCAL News assignment editor Mike Rogers, you've been tracking those from the desk.
Yeah, you know, Juan and Pat, the nighttime operations more become a way to be able to just hold the fire where it is until you can get through the next morning and really get those big aircraft in there again. I want to come to my computer because I want to show you a comparison. This was last night around 11:30, almost midnight here, and you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 helicopters on this. I want to take you to tonight. Tonight looks a little bit different. So we've got the 2 Chinooks here, and you've got this also other aircraft, and then one more Chinook that is coming out of Ventura County, Camarillo Airport, where it is fueling right now. So they're certainly there. It is not as big of an operation as it was last night. The fire department says tonight's main goal is to hold what they've got, and then tomorrow morning work on getting some more containment. I want to show you one more map here, speaking of containment and where the fire print is right now. The yellow is the voluntary, the red is the mandatory. 20,000 people under some sort of evacuation order tonight, and you can see the spread of the fire here, as Desmond was talking about, moving more on the left side of the screen here into the open land. So hopefully with these temperatures at night and a little bit higher humidity at night, that'll be able to help them get some containment on it. The fire chief said they'll hope to have some containment numbers in the morning, but those winds are howling out there, as you heard in our live reports.
Indeed, but they seem to be making progress. We can see that. Thanks, Mike. And stay with KCAL News throughout the night for continuing coverage of the wind and fire danger. You can also find more information on kcalnews.com.